Hey friends, welcome to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Anita Cummins, and I just want to say happy December. I don't know about you, but for us, it's been a crazy year filled with lots of twists and turns, and I'm excited for the next few weeks where we can take some time to refresh and reflect about the year that we've had and some of the things that were great, some of the things that were not so great. So I pray that if you are listening today, and maybe this is an especially hard time of year because you're missing someone that maybe is no longer with us, or you're trying to navigate this hard space, I offer you some grace and encouragement to realize that it's okay if some days are a little bit harder than others. It just means that your heart loves big. And sometimes we forget that. So I encourage you to find some peace and rest this season. I hope that you find ways to spend amazing, life-giving, heart-encouraging time and activities with those that you love, or just take a few minutes to sit under your tree, whatever brings you joy, and find peace in the moment. Today, I'm sharing my conversation with a fellow podcaster, writer, speaker, and a special education tutor and teacher, Melony Brown. She is a new friend that I met through the world of podcasting, and I feel like we were kindred spirits from the moment we got on the phone. So today, she shares her passion for inspiring, encouraging, and equipping women to fight to overcome the challenges that intersect their paths. She's going to share some of her stories, and I just hope it brings you encouragement as we get ready to break into a new season and consider what that might look like for the future ahead. So I pray that this season brings you joy and encouragement, and that this session today gives you some hope for the future. So grab your cup of coffee or your favorite beverage of choice, and let's get started. Doing things alone is entirely overrated. We all need a community to thrive. And that's why I'm part of an online community of writers and speakers, podcasters, and entrepreneurs called Creatives. And I love it. In the years since I joined this community, I've launched new ideas, and I finally executed the dreams that sat on the shelf for years. Seriously. And I was able to do this because of the outstanding group of mentors, exceptional training, and encouraging mastermind groups with my new friends who did and continue to give me invaluable feedback. Oh, and not to mention all the fun, because we have had lots and lots of fun. Have you ever said, I want to write a book? Or do you want to use your voice for the exciting world of podcasting? If so, Called Creatives is your best resource for up-to-the-minute industry training, expert advice, live coaching, and peer support like no other. Best-selling authors and speakers Allie Worthington and Lisa Whittle lead this community with a no-competition mission, and it shows. So join my friends and I in the Called Creative community. Head to my show notes, danitacummins.com/podcast, and click the link to get all the details to join. I promise you won't regret it. I look forward to seeing you in the community and watching you grow. Hey everyone, welcome to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. I'm your host, Anita Cummins, and today I'm super blessed to be joined by Melony Brown. She's an author and a speaker and a fellow podcast host. So this probably will be more about me learning from her than she, learning anything from me. She's coming on the show today to talk about her heart for helping women overcome striving and grit and determination and all those really hard things that we love to talk about over a cup of coffee. So Melony, thanks so much for joining me today. Happy Friday. How are you?
I am thrilled to be with you and excited for our conversation.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we connected. I just love how the Lord brings people in all of this new sphere. And I think like you and I talked on the, pre-call the other day about both of our hearts for podcasting and how much we love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. So do you want to tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your story and how you came to be a podcast host and all the things?
Sure. I'm happy to share. So from a very young age, at age 2, I had a stroke that was very unexpected, of course. I didn't fit into the box of who should be having a stroke at that time in 1972. A 65-year-old person who was obese and smoked and drank and just was not in good health is the person they expected to see when I was brought in. And so they didn't really know what to do with me, and they didn't know how to explain what had happened to my parents. And fortunately, and I say this all the time, and I mean it with everything I have in me, God gave me the right parents for that particular situation. They were only 22 at the time, and they took me home, and a strong overcomer mindset from the get-go. They wanted me to try everything and do everything that any regular kid would do. And so it was never an option for me to just whine and complain and I can't do it. Now, mind you, I did say those things and I did those things, and it wasn't like, buck up, you should do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't harsh. It was very kind and loving, and you can do this. Just try again. Just try again. And so my never give up attitude, my mindset is directly related to my parents, and I give them all the credit. Now, if we fast forward a little bit, the neurological struggles that I had as a result of the stroke, some of it continued on. When you look at me, you can't necessarily tell that. And that's partly because young children are very resilient when things like a stroke happen or any kind of, traumatic event like that. Right. So when we fast forward into my late 20s, I was having debilitating migraines to the point that I would be in the bed for 2 or 3 days a week. And God blessed me with an amazing husband named Jeff. And he took care of our 2 sons. He took care of feeding them, getting them to school, getting their homework done, all the things for a good 10 years, because that's how long that period lasted. My neurologist at the time couldn't really explain why I was having these. And I kept asking, okay, I'm seeing a link here between the neurological stroke that I had and these migraines, which are also neurological. Is there something going on that we need to be addressing? No, you're doing great. Yeah. And I'm going, no, I'm really not. I'm not doing well. Right. In fact, I didn't just inside. I said it verbally to them. Please, you've got to help me because I'm not feeling well and I'm very concerned about where this is heading. Yeah. And thankfully, after about 10 years or so, the migraines didn't go away, but they got less significant as far as how much it impacted my day or my life. And they weren't as frequent. Thank goodness. But just on the heels of that, right about my 40th birthday, I started having mini strokes. Well, those are neurological too. So in my head, I'm just spinning. Just come on. I'm not a medical professional, but let's be real. There has to be some sort of connection. I finally left that neurologist just because I didn't feel like I was getting the type of care that I needed and proactive rather than reactive. So after my 4th mini stroke, the new neurologist said, I want you to do an angiogram. Now, normally an angiogram is of your heart, but they went all the way into my brain to see what was going on because neurologically it is something that's happening in your brain. Yeah. And the results came back and said, yes, indeed, you have something going on. It is a rare cerebro brain vascular blood disease that's progressive. And the 3 characteristics of this disease called moya is stroke, mini stroke, and migraines. So I checked all the boxes because, I'm an overachiever and 1's not enough. 2's really not enough either. So I had to do all 3. And
100%. Yeah.
If you're going to go big, right?
Right.
And so I asked, what do we do about this? And mind you, this is at age 45. So my stroke was at age 2. And for 43 years, all these things are happening in my brain and in my blood. And I know things are going on. I can tell without an answer, without a name. And I know from telling people my story that there are people out there and they understand when you don't know what's going on, when you don't know what it is, it feels larger than life.
Sure. Yeah.
And having a name, while it was scary, knowing it's rare, 1 in 2 million, that it's progressive, meaning that it could get a whole lot worse, and that
Well,
the treatment option is brain surgery. It was quite scary. Not going to lie
right.
about it. It was quite scary, but there was great relief in at least finally knowing what it was.
Yeah, right. That's exactly. It had a name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
when it's named, you can deal with it. When it's unnamed
That's right.
and unknown, you throw things at it, hoping it's helping, and some of it does. But
Yeah.
overall, you don't know. So in March of 2016, which is about 7.5 years ago, I had an indirect brain bypass. And what that is they moved a thriving blood vessel from right here above my right ear to the part of my brain that had not been getting oxygen my entire life. And the reason is because moya moya, what they saw on my angiogram, is there's a blood vessel in our brains called the middle cerebral artery. And it usually goes like a straight line, except mine didn't do a straight line. Mine did a little bit of a straight line, and then it did crazy whatever, and then it did a straight line. And so when they saw the little craziness on that middle cerebral artery, they knew that's moya moya. And it happens.
Wow.
It's a congenital defect. So
Yeah.
when I was in my mother's womb, God knew it was there, and he left it.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And it sounds crazy, but I'm okay that he did. I know
Yeah,
it's cost
that's what I was
me a
gonna
lot
say.
of struggle throughout my life,
Right.
but I have discovered, and I bet you could say the same about your struggles, is I have learned the most about God when I have been fighting the hardest. And I don't regret any of that. I don't regret any of that, because that's something that I will carry with me into heaven, and know that I know who God is,
Yeah.
and that he never left me. He filled me with strength and courage, and he taught me his truths during those times. Now, would I have learned them at a different point in my life? Maybe. I can't say for
Maybe.
sure,
Yeah.
but I do know one of the things that was so profound is leading into my brain surgery. I was teaching at the time, and I came back to school after having met with the neurosurgeon and going over my results and learning that I was going to be heading into brain surgery. And they're asking me, how did the appointment go? How did the appointment go? And I'm just
Wow.
telling them, we've scheduled brain surgery. And the peace that I felt is only because of God. And so the verse that talks about that peace that passes understanding,
Right. Right.
I understood before
Yeah.
that period of time in my life, or at least I thought I did.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
actually, I experienced at a very deep level what that meant, because in the 2 weeks between when I learned about the diagnosis and knew that we were heading to brain surgery and when I had the brain surgery, my co-teachers thought I was nuts, because we're going to do this. And
Yeah.
I will tell you, part of why I felt so confident going into brain surgery was because God used about 6 different avenues to assure me that he's got this. And people would
Yeah.
say, are you worried about it? Yes, but God's assured me that he's got it. So I'm trusting him. And you probably can agree with this as
Yeah.
well, that when you've had experiences with God and you progress out of that yucky whatever it was,
Yeah.
you see how much you can trust God, so that when the next challenge comes, there's an assurance. I mean, a deep assurance that I can trust
right.
God. Now, just one more thing. Several people ask me, what happens if you don't make it out of it? And I don't, I'm not going to ask that of somebody else, but, not too many people, but several people ask me that. And I said, that's what God's got planned. And I know that he will take care of my husband and my sons. I don't like the thought of that outcome.
Right.
But God has done so much in my life up to this point of taking care of me, whatever his will is, truly.
Yeah. Yeah. In that degree of peace, I think, like you're saying, it's so hard to understand. Like you can't really explain it. First, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. And I did not bring tissues today. So for the people who listen to this on audio, they don't see me wiping my eyes profusely. Just so, and I think the reason, right, is the goodness. And I think I'm in the season right now where I was just sharing with someone, like we've had a lot of hard stuff this year. We've had a lot of hard stuff for a lot of years. And I was reminded in this new season with just in the last few weeks, like the pain is more about seeing the Father's heart than it is about making the pain go away.
Whoa.
Or even offering it to someone else. And I think sometimes in the church, we get really wrapped up in this thing called purpose, right? So I'm all about this quest for purpose right now in my life. And really looking at hard stuff and hard stories and cancer and babies dying and all these things that really happen in our lives. And then there's this position in the church where we're like, well, that purpose, the pain must be your ministry, right? So now you go take this thing and you give it to someone else. And sometimes that is true, right? Sometimes that is true. God may call you to use your story to bring grace or bring comfort or bring whatever to someone else. But that's not the point, I don't think, of the pain. I think the point is the Father's heart and to draw you close to him. And that is the point. And if there is a place in your life on this side of heaven or the other, right? Because prayers are eternal and they never expire. And if there is a place today or 200 years from now where someone finds your story and it draws them closer to the Father, then that's amazing, right? But he left the 99 for the one. And so his heart is to be with you. And that's where I think we can get so upside down when something hard happens, where we try to like you're saying, we need to name it, it's very healing. It is healing to know because you can clarity, right? There's confidence in that. There's peace in that. There's structure in that. There's boundaries. There's like, okay, we know what the problem is. We can start to fix it. But I think, I don't know, I'm just in the season now of just seeing the Father's heart. And that's just when you were talking, that was like in my head, my head and heart. And so it's a beautiful story. And I think it is hard when you surrender all those things, like your family, your children, what you thought life would be, how that has turned into your, I guess, ministry, now how you serve others. And what does that, I want to talk a little bit about that journey and how you came to be where you are today.
I'd love to share it. I want to start with something that happened 2 weeks ago. And when all of my challenges were happening, I had people asking me, how do you keep your positive attitude? And how do you have this incredible trust in what God is doing?
Yeah.
And
right.
knowing that this is a progressive disease. And what that means is, even though I've had this brain surgery and it has been successful, my neurosurgeon is like, every time I go for my annual checkup, he's like, you are just like, it's crazy how good this is. I still have migraines. I had a couple of mini strokes afterwards, only because it takes time for that new blood vessel to start doing its thing. The progressive part means that at some point it could get really bad again, and I could potentially need additional brain surgeries. And so people have often said, how do you keep going knowing that you have this ticking time bomb in your head and it could go off at any point?
Right.
Well, to be honest, we live in a fallen world and anything could happen to any of us at any time. And my parents instilled in me, and then God instilled in me even further, that we have to keep moving forward and just living life abundantly, like John 10:10 says. We often quote John 10:10 about the thief, and he's coming and he wants to still kill and destroy. And yes, we know that there's another part to it, but sometimes I don't know what happens. I think we know it's there, and we know it says that he comes so that we can have abundant life and live it to the full.
Yeah.
But it's almost like it's such a unique pairing between those two parts of that verse that we get hung up on the still, kill, and destroy and forget about the other part. And I don't want to go through life after what I've gone through and just plod and just coast. He says in that verse,
that's right,
that I can have an abundant life. And I will tell you, I do.
Yeah.
And it's because I keep moving forward, knowing that there's going to be additional challenges, and there have been, but I will use this. There is purpose in each of our challenges. Does it lead to our purpose? Maybe. So back to what happened 2 weeks ago. I had a friend who I have not interviewed, but who has been a supporter, who loves what we're doing, has come to some of the Overcomer celebrations. She was diagnosed with a very scary illness, and she reached out by text and said, I just want to talk to you. I can't even begin to tell you how happy that made me, not because she's facing a diagnosis, but because God has allowed me, through all that I have been through, to be someone that people can reach out to and say, I just need to talk about it. I just need some encouragement. And so I spent an hour or so on the phone with her, and not that I fixed it. I can't fix it. I cannot fix it.
That's right.
But to know that I can offer her encouragement and remind her that God's with her, and remind her of all the things that I've learned throughout the years about God and who he is, and the fact that he fulfills everything that he says he will do. That's an honor to me. That is an honor to me. That, for me, is my purpose. Now, my purpose in life is to glorify God and to point people to him. And I do that through this ministry and through the challenges that I've been through and what I have learned. And so
that's right.
About 11 years ago, I started interviewing women who are overcomers. And by that, I mean women who have gone through various trials, various struggles, very hard things. And while they had a period of, woe is me, this is awful, I do not like this, why is this happening, all of those things, never in a million years do I want anyone to think that I think you should just not do that you should just be able to bypass that. I didn't. I'm not asking anyone else to either. But you can't get stuck there. That's the whole point. Right. So these women that I have interviewed said at a certain point in time, enough of this wallowing in this misery and woe is me kind of thing. And they said, I am going to fight this. I am going to trust God, and I'm going to fight this. And whatever that means, wherever this heads, I'm going to do that. And so since I did that in 2013, I've interviewed over 150 women who have faced all kinds of challenges. And they are amazing. If I can say anything else. Did they do it all perfectly? No, none of us have. They were going along fighting hard, and then something happened, and they broke down again and fell apart again. And, I can't do this. It's too much, whatever. That's human. That's real life.
Yeah, that's right.
We can't expect that once you decide, hey, I'm going to fight to overcome this, that it's going to be just like easy. It's not. It's not. It's hard. Life is hard. Challenges are hard. But when I interview them, I have them tell their story, and then I ask them to share something that they've learned during that time, whether it's about themselves or about God or about life or whatever. And then also to share advice. And the advice kind of falls into the categories of what kind of strategies did you put into place? What kind of habits did you put into place? And what kind of mindset do you have during that time that helped you to fight to overcome that you now continue to use? Because when I find something works, I just keep doing it. Because if it's going to work, it doesn't make sense to try all these other things.
Yeah.
And so the interviews have just been, it's been such an honor, and it humbles me greatly to know that these women trust me to be vulnerable and tell their stories and tell when it was so hard and what that looked like. And then I've been really intentional on purpose to keep in touch with these women because I love knowing them and I want to continue to know them. And what they have taught me is probably far more than anything I've ever taught them. Just to see several of them go through either a chronic illness or a mental illness that, of course, we know is chronic as well. Some of them have not had a health struggle per se, but then whatever I interviewed them about a year or two later, they had another big challenge. And to see them continue that same strong mindset is just, it's amazing.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And so you have the core of your podcast is talking about, with these women and their stories and how they've overcome challenges won't stop me podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. Plug.
Thank you.
And yes, no, it's so good. And I was just, as you were speaking, I realized, and I'm, like I said, I'm a year in, so it's my 1 year anniversary of podcasting. So I'm really new compared to you, but it just lets you look inside someone's life. You know what I mean? We say that all the time. We don't know what people are carrying. And we have this deep need for community in the church and even outside the church. We have this deep need, right, for community and for walking alongside people. But then all of these human things get in the way of that, like our own insecurities and vulnerabilities.
Mm-hmm.
People are messy. Life is messy, right? And let's have a small group. And now you're in my house and I have to do laundry and it gets really messy. But then it's almost like you said this oxymoron because we really, really, really need it. We really, really do. God didn't design us to be alone. And so through this podcast and your story, God has given you the opportunity, like you said, entrusted you, which I find to be such a humbling thing as well.
Oh,
when the Lord has entrusted me with someone's heart. I think that's so big. And I'm just I am not qualified. I think it's a very reverent type of moment. It's almost like palliative care or these places where people go into someone's life and it's very vulnerable and you're right there with them. And there is a holiness to it. I think there is a reverence to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think it's beautiful that you hold them in that space. I think that's the beauty of just you talking is you're allowed to see into their life. And yes, you're giving light to maybe darkness, right? You're shining light in that and letting them bring that out into the world so that they can see that, even though it was hard, God is still in it. He's still with them. He still walks with them, even though it's hard, even though it's dark. And you're offering that encouragement to the world, right? Which of course we all need. But yeah, God has put you in a very tender position to hold their hearts, which is just beautiful, I think. So, that's so beautiful.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your 1 year anniversary. And I say that because I have learned doing this it's getting close to my 6th year.
Yeah.
It's hard work. But as we discussed in our pre-interview, there is just a fun, just camaraderie even to that. And knowing that you're putting something out there that will help people, because that's what your podcast is about too. And there are a lot of podcasters who start it and they really want to make it work and they go at it. But to cross that 1 year mark is something to celebrate because there's a lot of podcasters who don't go past a year. So I just encourage you to keep going.
Okay, I
Yes.
will. I'll call you on my hard days. Be
Yes,
like, Melanie, I
please.
can't do it today.
Please.
Oh, it's so good. I love it. I mean, I just think that, like, we talked, I think, a little bit about this before too. And I can see that in your story just as you're talking. Like, you don't really know. You're trying to step out in faith and obedience, and you just put one foot in front of the other. And it's so scary. It's
Yes, it
so
is.
hard. It is so hard. And I also think, like, I go back to the father's heart piece, because I was just talking with a friend yesterday about when hard stuff happens, we have a propensity to just default to well, it'll help somebody else one day. And it will help somebody else one day. I truly believe that. Like everything you're doing, like every story, every courageous woman who comes on your podcast, who comes together when you're, your groups and your conferences, when you get together, like every woman who's been brave enough to try, their story matters, right? And there is hope in all those things. But it is much more, I think, about just that intimacy of what the Father's trying to do in you.
Mm-hmm.
And we miss that too, because we're busy doing the checklist things. And so for me this year, I'm in the season, it's, the end of year. Maybe I mentioned this to you yesterday when we talked, but I'm closing out the year. We have a tendency to like, okay, what went well, what didn't? Let me see what next year is going to bring. Let me hurry up and get it all done so I can check the box for 2023. And I remember last year saying, I just want to show up for my podcast. I'm not trying to build numbers. Like I didn't even know what numbers meant, candidly. I don't know anything about ads and money and all that stuff. I just want to show up. And I think when I was reflecting on that just this last week or so, I was like, I did show up, I did. There were a few days I missed, but again, we had hard life, but it's been such a blessing. So anyway, thank you for that.
I think it's about obedience. For me, at least. When it all happened, I had gone to a writer's conference to pitch my book, and the 3 literary agents that I met with, they loved the concept of my book idea. They loved the ministry that I had started, but they looked at me and said, you should start a podcast. And everything in me just went, I mean, like, really? No, I can't do that. In fact, the whole 4.5-hour drive home, I didn't listen to the radio. I didn't turn on any other noise. I just wanted the silence. And I just talked to God the whole way home. Really, you're picking the wrong person, kind of like Moses, and I don't know about this. I don't like my voice, and gave every reason under the sun not to do it. And then, of course, my wonderful husband, I get home and I tell him, and I'm hoping that he's going to agree that we should pray about it and think about it and whatever. And he goes, yeah, baby, let's do it. And I looked at him and I said, that's not the response that I need you to say. Please don't say that.
Don't make me do this. Yeah.
And the thing that he pointed out was I couldn't argue with it. We're standing in our basement that is a finished basement that is a music studio with every piece of equipment that I would need. His knowledge over the years of recording for his band, of editing, of mastering it, producing it, promoting it, all the things. And so he looks at me and says, God's been preparing you for this all along.
Yeah. Wow.
How do you argue with that? I couldn't argue with that. He was right. And so we, for about 7 or 8 months, we studied what you do on a podcast, who you invite, how it works, what equipment, did we need any additional equipment, any of that kind of stuff. And then we launched it, and with fear and trembling, with fear and trembling.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Oh, I love that you said that, with fear and trembling. That's so good. Yeah.
But I will tell you, it's about obedience, because what I've learned in my life is that God calls us to all kinds of things outside of our comfort zone, but he prepares us in different ways, not always completely. Like I wasn't 100% ready when I hit the record button the very first time.
Right.
But because I was obedient, he has shown up and helped opened doors, and he's given me other opportunities to learn things about podcasting. It is quite the story in and of itself. And I guess that's probably why I like it so much, is I, with fear and trembling, was obedient to what he was calling me to. How can you argue with 3 literary agents and your husband who points out, well, we have everything you need?
Yeah.
There was no argument left in me. There was nothing. And so I was obedient. And just like the years of going through all of my health challenges, where God showed up and guided me and instructed me and poured his love into me.
That's right.
Same thing with the podcasting. And I don't think that I would have a podcast without the health challenges. I wouldn't have had a reason to have a podcast. And so what God has done as a result of the challenges that I've gone through have just blown my mind. It really has. And it's not like I was obedient to get this. I was obedient because God is so real to me, and he has shown himself to me over and over and over. And he has, not that he had to prove it, but he has proven that I can trust him no matter what challenge intersects my path. Yeah. I'm just in awe of who he is, and the fact that he calls us his children, and that he loves us so abundantly, and that he entrusts us with things that are really big and very important and meaningful. It's been such a journey, and I'm grateful for it. I am.
Yeah.
It's been hard. Danita, it's been hard many, many times.
I can't imagine. Yeah.
But I think our society has been programmed with the fast food mentality, or the have it your way, or I have 150 channels to choose from, or this is the one I love the most, the Staples easy button. But I think it's in
you're right.
We've been programmed to think that life should just be easy and it should be resolved very easily. And I have all these choices, and it's not. I mean, we live in a fallen world, and there are plenty of examples in the Bible of the heroes of the faith that have gone through really, really hard things. And we get all excited about studying Joseph and how he was very much mistreated by his brothers, and then in Potiphar's house. And we think, wow, look, he handled the whole prison thing so well. And then what happened at the end, of course, with his brothers coming back and his father coming back, and he's saying all of that evil, those difficulties, God has used for good. I've come across this. You're talking about things that are impacting you lately. One of the things that's impacting me lately is we love all the Bible stories because we love the outcome, but we don't spend a whole lot of time really processing the fact that that outcome had a whole lot of challenge, a whole lot of hard, a whole lot of struggle to get there. And I'm processing this, so I'm not 100% clear with the wording yet. But those Bible stories, while we all know we're supposed to learn from them, I think we need to realize that what they've gone through is truly an example for us. It's not just that flannel board picture from our childhood of, look what happened to all of these characters. No, God wants you to know these people, not fictional characters, but these people of God's family from way back then went through some really hard stuff. Did they whine and complain? Probably. But they got to a point where they're like, all right, I am going to think about Joseph. I'm actually studying a book about Joseph, which is why I keep bringing up Joseph.
Yeah. I read a book earlier this year about him. I forget the name. I don't think it was Eugene Peterson. I have to go back and look at the author, but I started seeing a therapist earlier this year before the storms of this season swept us up again. But she had me read that, God meant it for good.
Yes.
I think that's the book.
Is that from Genesis 50? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 30, 40 chapters or something. It's a pretty long book. It goes through that whole Joseph's life
Mm-hmm.
and breaks out all of those pieces from the very beginning, right? All the
Yes.
way through. And it just challenges this thought process of like, but God meant it for good. And
Yep.
what does that actually mean? And highlights all of those places where he was afraid, and all the places where he was in a hole in the ground, all the places where he was alone, all the places where he was persecuted or where he was wronged or where he was, all the things. And just him continuing to show up and say, I will follow you, Lord.
Yes.
Like, I will trust you.
Yes.
I will dwell with you. Like you were saying, I will abide with you. I will be with you. I will spend time with you. And he was isolated, right? He was isolated from his family.
Mm-hmm.
He was isolated from his heritage, there.
Yes.
He was isolated. And if you study, I think the scriptures, that's what you go look at all of them. Moses, Abraham, Sarah, all of them in the New Testament too. But, Mary Magdalene and of course, Jesus and Paul. And there was these seasons of isolation and these seasons of just emptiness and these seasons of great hurt and these seasons of great disappointment and great struggle. And I agree with you too. My husband and I say this a lot in this season of our life. Like, the older we get, the less we know. Like,
yes.
I know
Yes.
I have a good friend. She's my soul friend. She says, Jesus loves me. This I know, for the Bible tells me. And I think, it's so simple, but it's true. Like, that I know. I know Jesus loves me. This I know, and on the hard days when I catch myself and I'm like, God is love. I know you love me. I just want to see your face, because this thing is really hard. And in my mind, it doesn't make sense. It shouldn't be this way. Like you're saying, it shouldn't be this hard, or it shouldn't hurt this much, or it shouldn't whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's important. Like you said, in our faith journey.
Yes.
Faith is a muscle, I say a lot, and it grows, and you got to use it. And that means it's going to be hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Everything that you've just said, I agree with. And that's the part of what I'm kind of formulating in my head, is how incredibly powerful God's word is. Yes.
Yeah.
It is amazing what we learn about God, but
Right.
he uses the people of his family and those stories to say, hey, look what Joseph did. Look how he stayed faithful. Look how he endured and persisted and leaned hard on God during those times when, you're right, he was isolated. He didn't have family to run to and say,
that's right,
just let me hang out with you for a while. I'm hurting. He didn't have that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he had friends, but
sure,
there is so much for us to gain when we study God's word. We see how faithful not just Joseph was, but how faithful God was throughout his life.
That's right. Yeah.
And so my favorite story in the Bible has been King Jehoshaphat in 2 Chronicles 20. Now, he wasn't perfect, because none of us are, but his right-hand men came running to him and said, a vast army is coming against us. What do we do? And I'm sure it wasn't like immediately, although it's the next verse, so we assume it was immediately. He said, we're going to pray about this, and we're going to fast. In fact, not just us, but the whole town. We're going to fast because we need God's help. And it says, we are going to seek God's help. Yeah. And then we see throughout the 2 Chronicles 20, Jehoshaphat and one of his advisors, they're praying to God with all the people. And they are saying, we know you are with us. We know you will fight for us. We know that you will strengthen and encourage us and prepare us for this. We need to be saying those things when we're going through our challenges, because the enemy is ready to get in our head and just fill it with all kinds of lies and try to defeat us and try to make us give up and try to make us think that God's not with us, that he's paying attention to somebody else. He's not interested in your story, right?
Yep.
And so recalling all of those things, those truths about God, and not just in your head. Like when you say them out loud, it is powerful. It's powerful.
That's right. Yeah.
And so that's what
That's
he did.
exactly right.
And I love, it's verse 12, I believe, of 2 Chronicles 20. I believe it's Jehiel says this. We don't know what to do, but our eyes are on you. And that's the truth even today.
That's right.
When I'm going through 43 years of not knowing what's going on inside my brain and inside my body, I don't know what to do. I'm going to the doctor. I'm doing the things that the doctor tells me to do. And it's not that I'm unhappy with having to do that. Like, I know that we need to take some responsibility for doing healthy things, but I can't fix it. The doctors clearly can't fix it because they don't know what it is. But putting my eyes on God is the best thing that I can do, that you can do, that your listeners can do anytime. Does putting our eyes on God automatically fix it? It didn't for me. I don't think it does for anybody. Now, if God wanted to fix it like that, then yeah, sure. But I think that it changes our perspective big time.
That's right.
Because we put our eyes on the one who can do something about it, who can fix it, who can get you through it, whatever that means. And then in 2 Chronicles 20, God prepares them for battle, and they decide to praise and worship before they ever walk out on the battlefield. And I think we need to be doing that. And it's hard. It's hard to do that when your brain feels like it's about to explode, or when your heart is so crushed that you can't breathe.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. We went to church the other day, and I used to sing on the worship team. So I'm like, music. My husband plays the drums, so our basement is a music room too. So that's why I would we're probably kindred spirits from the beginning.
I love
it. Lots of late night jam sessions in our kitchen with our kids and all the things. And so, like in this season, I'm not, actively on our worship team at church, but I went to church after this really hard new round of things that we've been struggling with. And most of the time I'm in worship and I'm just like crying. I want it to be like dark and I worship in my hands and all the things, but it's just that place where music speaks to a place in your soul that like words can't ever get to. You know what I mean? It's just like, there's a power in that. That's why art is so amazing.
Yes.
Because we can't really explain it. It just hits us in a place that, and music, I feel like is like that for me. And we were singing, I don't know, it's a pretty mainstream worship song right now on the radio, and the worship team was singing it and I was singing it. And there was a moment where I was like raising my hands, and I think the bridge is something about thy will be done. Thy will be done.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just undone, you know, and I had my hands raised and I was having a full on debate with the Lord, like in worship in front of 50 people. And I'm like, my hands are raised and I'm just like, and it was a reckoning, I was just really like, it was taking things out of me because I was like lifting my hands in that place of surrender and just saying, okay, I am mad at you. I am hurt. I am not okay with this stuff. And I am still going to force myself to raise my hands and worship and cry. And I was just really like sitting there, like crying, like, at the top of my lungs. But I agree with you. I think there is something very powerful about worship. And we think about worship sometimes as this celebration, and it is a celebration. It is a celebration. But there is this worship of just like, all right, despite whatever's happening, we win or lose the battle, we will worship you. We will worship you, Yeah. It's hard. Like you said, it's hard.
It's very hard. One more thing about King Jehoshaphat. And after his army praised and worshiped God, and then they went out on the battlefield, and it is the craziest thing that God did. He turned the enemies on each other and they killed each other. And God's men, Jehoshaphat's men, walked away.
Went and had a sandwich.
Well, they got to get all of the plunder, and so much so that it took 3 days, I believe. If we take that story and we say, okay, how did King Jehoshaphat respond to the challenge? In his situation, it was a vast army. It was like a military type thing. I'm not in the military. You're not in the military. Majority of listeners are probably not in the military either.
I was in the military for almost 30 years. No, you're good. We didn't talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually work as a
But you're
defense
not
contractor. So yeah,
currently. So let's,
I'm not active duty
yeah.
now. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
My point, I guess, and I'm glad you corrected me, but
Yeah.
it doesn't
Good.
matter that we might not have a vast army coming against us, a literal military attack coming against us. God's word shows us how to respond to those challenges.
That's right.
Did Jehoshaphat do it perfectly? Probably not. But there are so many great things to take away that I can say, you know what? Maybe I could follow what he did in faith and then learn from it, knowing that God is going to respond. Maybe not exactly, but he's going to respond. And in this season, I am just undone about the whole idea of seeing the stories in the Bible and studying them and thinking about what their challenge was, how they responded, how God responded.
That's
and
right.
then what happened afterwards, like going forward. And in all of that, the importance of obedience and faith and trust just screams at me. I mean, it just, I can't read those stories and it just not like, it's in my face in a good way. Like, hello, Melony, pay attention. God honors those things. And it's not we're doing it to get something. We're doing it because we're saying what you said earlier and what Joseph did. I know he's taking care of me. I know this is going to turn out for my good.
Yeah.
Am I going to like it the whole time?
No.
Not at all. But, there's such value in it. Such purpose in it. I know purpose is one of those weird words right now.
It's okay. It's like his purpose, which we don't fully understand.
Yeah.
His ways are higher than ours. And I love the fact that you're finding a framework. That's what I was thinking, the word that caught what you were talking, like you study these scriptures and you study all of these lives. And there is a framework there, right? That you can pull out and you're like this, and this. And that's such a powerful tool. And I think if we go back to just like leadership for 1 second, like we talked all about faith today because that's where we are and that's our heart and that's how we serve and that's how God is in our life, but there is a framework, for I guess anyone who listens to this podcast who's, not a professing Christian today, but there is a framework for your life and there's a framework. We obviously, our faith is a big part of who we are, but there are some principles in there that are tried and true that surpass time and space.
Yes.
And so I think that is another nugget because sometimes we do look at it and we're like, where's my 5-step plan? Where's my purpose checklist, my 5-step plan? Well, you're not going to get a 5-step plan today, but you can get a framework. God will give you a framework, like you're saying, and it's laid out right there in scripture. So if you want to be obedient, be diligent, take the time to study the word and see it, you can, like you said, it's all laid out. And I think that's a beautiful thing. God is bringing these things to you and then you can give those to the world, like look at these things. It doesn't have to be complicated. Don't overthink it, just do these 3. Yeah. God is with you in this and in this and in this. And that should, I would hope, bring a lot of peace to a lot of people who are struggling with, all the things that life gives us.
Yeah.
So
because challenges are just part of life. And we need to be prepared for them. I think sometimes people really struggle more so than they need to during a challenge because they're so shell shocked that they're going through something like that and they don't know how to move forward. They don't know, they don't have the tools.
That's right.
In my first book, Challenges Won't Stop Me, I guide the readers through a journey where we pick up essential gear. And essentially the essential gear are the things that help us be prepared for the challenges, but also to equip and empower us. And it's basically the spiritual disciplines. Someone pointed that out after I published it. And I was like, whoa, I didn't plan it to be like that, but it is.
That's right.
So it's like your tent. The world is going to come hang out here. We'll give you safety. We'll give you protection. It's The world's tent is flimsy. It doesn't truly protect you. But if you run to God's tent where he is, you're going to find true safety and protection and rest.
That's
there.
right.
We need a map,
Yeah.
which is God's word. And I mean, that's been tried and true and used gazillion times, but it's true. It's a map. Does it say, Melanie, you need to go to this street and then turn right? No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
But again,
Right.
if you read each of these Bible stories with the intent of how did that character, that person handle the challenge that they were given? What did they do? What did they learn? How did they navigate it? And see how God was a part of all of that. That's guiding you because it's telling you, hey, when you have a challenge like King Jehoshaphat, good idea to pray and seek God's help.
Yeah. Right.
That's the guidance that we need, because sometimes maybe I'm the only one, but I forget to do that.
No, I think, we all do.
I get so caught up in my struggle that I'm like, oh, yeah, probably a good idea to talk to God and ask for him to help.
Yeah, you're struggling your own strength. Both of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, rather than struggling in God's strength. Yeah.
That's right.
So the essential gear is genuinely the spiritual disciplines, prayer, praising and worshiping.
Yeah.
Recording what's happening to us.
I love
because
that.
Because you learn so much from reviewing that later and seeing where God is leading, where you've grown, where you're not as connected to God, and realizing how much harder you made it on yourself by not being connected to God.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second book that I just published early October, it's called Keep Moving Forward. And it talks about those challenges that most of us have, a refining fire.
Yeah. Right.
You haven't shared specifically what you're going through right now, but just what you have shared makes me feel like there's a refining fire going on right now. And while it's hard to say you're glad for those things, those are really, really times where we grow and we learn so much about God. And growth is a huge part of what I believe is the purpose behind challenges. And it's a huge part of what Keep Moving Forward is about. And part of the whole book concept is, why do we even keep moving forward when we know that while I just finished this challenge, there's going to be another challenge up ahead? It may not be as huge as the one that you just finished. It could be something completely different, but you know they're coming. And so why do we even keep moving forward? Well, we keep moving forward because we know that every challenge, just like with Joseph, just like with King Jehoshaphat, just like with any of the Bible characters, it's about our growth, but it's about becoming more and more like Jesus. What we develop during those challenges is causing us to look more and more like Jesus. And we keep moving forward because all that we are gaining while we are here on earth, that's not visible. That's determination and strength and courage and perseverance and all of those things we take with us when we go to heaven. We're moving forward because all the things that we have gone through challenge-wise are leading us to heaven, and what God gives us there for our lives there, we're going to need all of these things.
Yeah.
And I love the whole idea that we're carrying that forward, because we're not going to carry our house. We're not going to carry our car. We know all of those things.
Yeah.
But what are we going to carry? It's going to be things that mean something in eternity. And that part excites me because I'm like, God, I don't know what you're preparing me for, but it's going to be good. Because
it must be big. Yeah.
I don't know, because I've gone through a lot. I know you've gone through a lot. And I am honored that God cares enough about me and who he made me to be, and that he wants me to be prepared for what he has for me for eternity, which is where it really matters. That he allows these challenges to happen because he knows the outcome. He knows the determination, the challenges won't stop me mindset, all the things that we said a moment ago. He knows that I need them, and he loves me so much that he's going to allow those things to happen, but he's not going to just say, Mel, you're on your own. You handle it. And if you get perseverance, great. If you don't, it's all right.
Yeah.
No, he's with us every step of the way. His presence is with us. It's in us. He is so good.
Yeah.
He is so good.
No, I think it's so good. I love that you just shared your story. I love that you went through your books and all the things. I think I love, if I can put a bow on our chat today, I just love the fact that you are taking all these things that God has given you through hard times, through all of your health stuff, through everything, and you're just trying to give that back. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's that beautiful, opening of, you're like, okay, this came in and it's going back out. This came in and it's going back. It's almost like there's this waterfall thing that I have when I'm thinking about you. This is coming in and it's going back out to the world. And so my prayer for you is that you get to keep doing that.
Yes.
God is obviously sovereign in all things. That, I love your obedience, like you're saying. And I pray that God will just continue to bring beautiful stories into your life that you can hold and treasure, and then just pour those back out into the world. And I think that is a beautiful, beautiful offering to the Lord. I just think it's beautiful what you're doing. So
thank you for your kind words. It really means a lot. And
you're welcome.
I am honored that God trusts me to do this.
Yeah.
And I just want to please him. I want to be obedient to him. And there is such joy in being able to help people.
Yeah.
There is such joy.
I agree. Yeah. At a deep level that you can't really, like you said, even explain. Joy is not happiness. It's just a depth of something that's hard to quantify, like art. Yeah. So do you want to let everybody know where they can find you? We talked about your podcast and we'll put all the links in the show notes, but do you want to tell everybody how they can get in contact with you if they want to reach out or invite you to speak and tell your amazing story? Because I know that's a heart that you have, but where can they get in touch with you?
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share that. My website is my name, Melony Brown. It's melonybrown.com. And while my parents were fabulous, they did give me a name that I have to spell because it's not a traditional spelling. But I don't fit in the box anyway. So no surprise there.
That's right.
With having to have a name that is a little unusual. So it's melonybrown.com. And my interviews for the first few years that I did them were in story form. And so those are all posted on my website under the stories tab. And then the podcast episodes are also there under the podcast tab. My books are available online on my website. You can also order them on Amazon. If you order them through my website, they will be signed. So I don't know if that means something to the listeners, but I enjoy doing that. And I also have on my website the Journey On quiz. And it's a fun little 20-question quiz that helps you determine what kind of personality you have when it comes to going through challenges. And I find that people are kind of shocked when they get the answers, whether it's shocked that they are navigating it in a certain personality, or they're like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I thought I was doing better than I was. And none of the personalities are meant to be a bad thing. Like there's not one that's better than another. It's how you navigate your challenges. And I think it's a great opportunity for you to just kind of reflect for a moment and think, okay, I'm okay with that, but what else do I need to learn? Because I'm all about learning. I'm a teacher at heart, and I feel like we're always given opportunities to learn and grow. And I love taking advantage of those.
Yeah, me too. That's really cool. I just went and clicked on it. So I'm going to go check it out. So if you see my quiz results come through, I'll be doing that later today.
Awesome.
I'm a quiz personality test junkie. I have an entire folder. It almost became an idol. So I'm working through that. But yeah, I love self-reflection and all those kinds of things. Yeah. So very cool. Well, Melony, thank you so much for coming today. It was a huge blessing. And I just thank you so much I thank the Lord for letting us connect and for you to share your story with us. So I hope that we stay connected, and we'll put all your links in the show notes so everybody can reach out to you. So definitely, encourage you, check out Melony Brown's website, listen to her podcasts, her books, and invite her to come and speak and share her amazing, powerful story of hope and overcoming with the world. So thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, Danita.
Hey friends, well, that's it for today's episode. Thanks so much for joining me on this amazing podcast journey. It has been a blessing. I hope that, like I said in the beginning, you have an amazing holiday. We have one more episode coming up in December with one of my called creatives, friends and colleagues, Liz Lassa. So look forward to that as we dig into her Spiritual Circles journal and ways you can consider or reconsider goal setting and planning for the future. So we'll air that episode on December 21st and then sign off for the holidays. And I hope to see you back. Season 2 launches in January with a whole new list of guests and stories and tools and tips to help you lead yourself and others well. So have an amazing day, friend. I'll see you later. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Entrusted to Lead podcast. This podcast was brought to you by our amazing producers at Wildfire Creative Company. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please hop over to iTunes or Spotify, subscribe, rate it, and leave a review. It's very much appreciated. And make sure you come back. We'll talk more about the essence and elements of leadership on the first and third Thursday of every month. If you enjoyed today's show, you can head over to danitacummins.com/podcast and gain access to additional free resources. But make sure you subscribe to our newsletter so you can stay up to date on the latest shows. Have an amazing day. Talk to you soon.